Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second guided reading of my newsletter, Lost in Translation. I'm currently still debating with myself whether to change the name of this newsletter. It's still an ongoing debate. I haven't decided yet, but we will see. So last week, I didn't write a lot. It is not a super eventful week, but there has been some really big events. So in terms of sheer number of events, there are not so many, but for the very few events that happen, I think they have some really far-reaching repercussions, right? So obviously, one biggest, I would say the biggest event of last week was the PLA drill, the military exercise around Taiwan. So this is the third major exercise around the waters of Taiwan in history, right? So the first one was back in 1996, right? That's during the so-called third Taiwan Strait crisis. And the second one is just 2 years ago, right? In response to Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. It took, 26 years between those two. However, between the second and third, it took only 2 years, right? So I think one thing is really obvious. There has been an attempt on the mainland side to normalize such kind of military action, right? And each time the exercise areas have been more and more, closer to the island as well as more precise, right? If you notice here, this is a difference between the drill of 2 years ago and the drill today, right? One interesting fact is if you look at the red areas, this is 2 years ago, right? It's almost all square, right? And this time it's becoming more kind of tailor-made for the island, right? And beside the main islands, then you have all these exercises around the outlying islands, which are closer to the mainland, by the way. For example, Kinmen here, this area of that is administered by the Taiwan authorities right now is only like 2 kilometers away from Xiamen, which is a major city in southeastern China as well, right? And all these different outlying islands, there have been exercises around them as well. So it becomes more and more normalized. It becomes more and more operational. The main argument I have for this event is, however, I first try to remind you of the unusually long period of time, which is like 3 days that took place between the Lai Ching-te's pro-independence inauguration speech, which is supposedly the event that triggered this event exercise. The speech between the speech and the exercise, there were 3 full days. Okay, so in this 3 full days, there's almost complete silence. It seems like people are still guessing whether the mainland China they are responding to this or not. So I think there's obvious hesitation over there, and in the article I try to link this hesitation to the overall unstable situation in the economy right now, right? So if you want to read more, you can go to the newsletter. And I think there's another key argument I try to make is I actually think such kind of military exercises are overall better for peace rather than the other way around, right? So the argument I try to make is really, if the PLA, if the mainland side is hell bent on the military action in the near future, right? The best course of action should be staying quiet, doing things, in hiding, right? That should be the more logical course of action, and denying that there will be a military action. If you remember the Ukraine war, right? The Just before the Ukraine war, there have been CIA allegations that Russia is going to invade Ukraine, and Russia and Putin and Lavrov, they have they had denied these accusations for as long as for as late as 2 weeks or 1 week even before the actual invasion, right? That's how you do an invasion. That's how you do a real military action, through hiding, through tricks, through the illusion that you create for other people that you are not going to do this military action. So the element of surprise is very important for an actual military action. While what China is doing here is direct opposite. Basically, China is trying to create this fake sense, or this more like a show of force that is getting closer to, and closer and closer to the target, but not exactly the final action, right? This is really, I think it's more psychological than substantive. Or in fact, what I try to say is the psychological aspect of this is the substance. It is China's way to deter Taiwan from slipping further into this pro-independence talk. This is China's way to deter the situation from spiraling into uncontrollable conflicts, right? So I think the second event that you have to pay attention to is a major symposium, or just another word for seminar, that was chaired by President Xi Jinping himself in the northern province of Shandong province. So the topic of the symposium is on reform, which also is going to be the main topic for the upcoming third plenum of the Chinese Communist Party. So it is quite natural to view this kind of symposium as a part of the work that is building up and leading toward the third plenum, which was going to be held in July. So I point out several interesting things about this symposium. For example, they invited a bunch of panelists, guest speakers, to speak in front of the leadership. It's a quite diverse cohort. So for exact details, you can go and check the article. And I also point out some specific wordings about possible areas of reform that could actually be written into the final reform document in the July plenum. I also point out the language that kind of she placed on the implementation of the reform rather than just the idea of the reform, showing at the same time, I think he's also very concerned about the actual effectiveness of any reform program. Yeah, so overall, it's a brief review for the last week, but one of my stated goals for this newsletter is to try to tell you the events that matter, right? That matter beyond news cycles. And so I would just focus on the events that matter. If it doesn't matter at all, maybe I only have like 1 or 2 days of news value, I would not say it. But if it has value beyond news cycles for long-term impact, I will write to you. So I will not restrict myself to the length of the review. If it only just one thing that's matter, I'll just talk about that one thing only. If there are like 5 things, 6 things that I think are really important, I will also list them out. Okay, so that's the spirit of my newsletter. If you're interested in, go search for Lost in Translation Substack, or you can type in the link here, Robert Wu, ROBERTWOO.substack.com. Okay, thank you.